Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. May God forgive our species and bless our species. All right. So, let's begin. How do we go through the moment? As someone who has experienced something in his inner realms, different than how his outer realms has existed. As a modern human being of 2024, after 32 laps around the sun, to the symmetrical position of the year 1991, Amin Jabir Ansari arrived. I don't know what I can say or what I can do or how I can contribute in any way to another human being. That doesn't, there was a time where help was fascinating, but now it's the possibilities of what can happen and what is allowed under an administrative will. I want to be a human being that if this giving these talks is an art form, I want to teach it. But there is no teacher. There is just moments where the world fascinates you and your soul moves and the moment is created. And if you are wise, you acknowledge the context of the world, which is an administrative power of the original. Dear human beings, there is 8 billion of you on this planet. You may have concluded accidentally or indirectly, inaccurately or ignorantly or whatever, that you are just on a rock in the middle of nowhere. The game is greater than that. What is happening in existence is greater than that. It's as if somebody who's tested the waters can have an opinion. It's as if the body is waiting for the mind to perform. The mind is waiting for the soul to move. And the soul obliviously stands as God waits for man to remember the Creator. It is the official acknowledgement. That means what I'm saying here, dear folks, is that I'm just 1 out of 8 billion. Nothing that I'm saying is authority. The music might be intense, but I'm just 1 in 8 billion talking. But I do acknowledge that I have access to sight, as we all do. And what do I see out of this sight? And something has astonished me. Some notion, some perception, something that is happening right now. And believe it or not, I think everyone would agree, there is nothing more fascinating than your own existence. The fact that you are here at all, the fact that you are attending. Our species has suffered through fear of the worldly enough. The attention should go directly, if you are to love or fear. Absolutely. You must point it to that which is beyond the world. Religion presents a very important algorithm that if the created does not acknowledge the creator, the created is meaningless. You see, it's not a matter of just survival of the fittest, just exist, have a personality. Some part of you, like an advanced position of knowing, is watching everything you have been doing this whole time. You yourself. It was muted, but it doesn't matter. I'll keep going. Sometimes I laugh at my own impatience because it has a style that is unworldly. Going through the moment. That is where we are, the station. The human being is born. It exists. It becomes a personality. If you were to analyze or scan or let's say have some sort of surveillance of human capability, it would be something in the lines it would be something in the lines of what are the intelligent interaction levels that the human being is acknowledging. Most human beings are capable of being biological, physical organisms and moving. Most human beings are capable of communicating. Most human beings are capable of discovery. Most human beings are capable of discovering something new and updating. Most human beings are capable of playing games. And if you're someone who you feel the world has abandoned you, you have been blessed with a mightier game. To see that which is beyond that self you think is lacking, or beyond that self that you would think is worthy of worship. There is no self worthy of worship. Anything in this world is not worthy of worship. That which is the one and only singular beyond it. That means do not get distracted by where you are, but be conscious. That means honestly, I was raised in an urban environment. Never have I been in some sort of gladiator arena or battle or fight. I've had physical fights, but nothing in the sense of like having medieval weapons and in some sense fighting with an honor of an ancient world, you know. But anything that I can't have in my inner realms, I get. What does that mean? That means the mind is capable of visualizing a first-person point of view of how it would look like if I was suddenly out of nowhere, thrown in a battlefield of existence, alone, nothing, just a being in the world. In that moment, You know, a man with no allies, a man with nothing, a man whose shyness, embarrassment, ignorance, foolishness, you know, uh, 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 afflictions, whatever. Right, there came a moment like, oh my God, I have forgotten. The liftoff is right now. The liftoff of human attention to the proper context that in some sense will align humanity towards towards its priorities. First things first, we did not create this world, we find ourselves in it. We human beings have concepts of ownership. We respect the concept of ownership. To consider that the world belongs to that which is beyond it is very understandable when somebody, for example, owns a car, but they are not their car. They are an organism, capability, intelligence beyond what they own, beyond what they create. The artist is mighty. The Almighty is the only key to the door. I tried it. You know, I will grant this. I did not try the path of evil. I did not. I kept it in my inner realms caged. As if I finally understood why the gods in ancient Greece, you know, caged the Titans. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. We do not bow to an idea that is worldly. And yet we care for our Creator's creation. Therefore, you may not like peace. And it's not that, it's like, you know, there is an idea that even if people were perfect, the world civilization would reset so the imperfect could just acknowledge that there was a creator. The game is way more important than the stories that we are combating, right? If I was thrown in a battlefield, nothing, just out of nowhere, I teleported in an old school battlefield with the knowledge I have now, right, in an ancient medieval thing, the first thing I would do is in some sense see the area where the furthest soldiers are and the fewest soldiers are, and I would run there. Because the human mind in its madness has a capability to destroy itself and the other in its rage. And this is a very psychologically hilarious situation that in some sense the only way that in some sense we can have, it's not that sins of minor sins are going to stop, but we will immediately stop the major of the human species through the tactics of the innovation of not just those who are alive now who care for the future, but we are preparing the world. Excuse me. We're preparing the world for the Almighty return. Everything, like if you take religion seriously, you know, there is no such thing as saving anything. Under the system, we're in some sort of game. The one who created the video game knows everything and is seeing all of them function at once in a magnificence. You know, I thought about it that if there is in my view, but just to I actually honestly, let's tear off the mask. The lion has roared enough. Of this existential system I'm in belongs to a singular, uncreated, which means automatically beyond the world, creator. So the creator is not created. Now check this out. The story gets interesting. Life gets way more interesting. So the uncreated created the world and created souls and created lower beings and higher beings and created the energy that moves it all, which is considered divine's decree. So if I do something wrong and something bad happens, that's like the system admin saying, warning. Do you know? That's called ethics, and it's simplified. That just be that fascinated child you were in a world that it's not an empty room. There is an admin, there are moderators. It's way more complex when it comes to actually the religious context of intelligence that is going on here, right? And so humanity is being pushed to a neo-modern age where the archaic revival of the eternal that could have never gone anywhere, because we are in its domain. We are the created. That means if my artwork became alive, and asked me, did you create me? I would say yes. If that artwork said, what is my purpose? I would say you don't understand your purpose. You don't understand that your purpose is to be watched by different souls. That we are in a world and we cannot ignore the integration of the privacy sectors of the human mind. Oh, dear humanity. Oh, dear creator. Oh, dear moderators. Oh, dear everything. Oh, dear God. The human species, at least from the perspective and the weight of one human being's view. I am not an ambassador, but I am a human being that has experienced the human system. Dear listeners, more than life is about advancing the subjective notion we have of our own existential form. It is about acknowledging that, okay, we're in a scenario, we're in a world. We are an energetic being. Because we're temporary, we're thrown into a situation, an existential dynamic, that you are a candle. And you glow brightest when you're young, and as you grow older, your brightness is of a different nature. You still grow brighter. So, take this in. And you know, when I say going through the moment, the way I speak, the way I'm trying to teach it to the viewers, guys, there's nothing to it. It's a new moment. New means whatever preparation you have, it was the past. You have entered now, and as you are now, you ask yourself, where is everything going? And you see it is going to a future. And when you ask yourself what's going to happen in the future, you look at what's happening now and you wonder about the probabilities. But there are always unknown factors, and the perception of the human being in being an individual in a massive world gives it an ability of, I don't know if I can say fake infinitudes, but what it is that we can perceive that there are infinite ways to look at this life, that if humanity in some sense is blessed by God's decree, and only God knows. But if we play our cards right, and if we realize this is not a game and it is not a gamble, it is the presence of souls in a world, and what can be interpreted as a test is also being interpreted as a performance. The moment you wake up in existence, acknowledge the system admin, and I call it system admin because I'm trying to say to the secular, there is another Noah's Ark. And the Noah's Ark is, are we in emptiness or are we in the most intelligent position? And we must be conscious. If you ask me what kind of Muslim or religious person I am, or how as a psyche even the notion of God became real to me, that is the only thing I fear, because you don't understand. Your efforts can be masterful, your efforts can be endless. You can in some sense be a human being and attempt to do something like a machine, like as if you have endless power, and in some sense you don't, but you act as if you do, because the inner realms doesn't get tired even though the body does. And so God has blessed man with a voice box, so in some sense the worlds are not just hidden behind our eyes. Ask for forgiveness, repent. What does that mean? Why has it been mentioned that we are here because we made a mistake? Because the mistake was we forgot what is, excuse my language, but I'll say it to the modern world. We forgot who is boss. It's like you are an inferior being if you bow to a king that wears a crown in the world, but when you bow to the king that wears a crown, that wears the whole world, the whole existence, the Lord of the worlds, then in some sense, oh my God, I thought it was about knowledge and understanding. Well, guess what? If I pay attention and realize the depth of life was right where the simplicity began. God knows, which, in some sense I get emotional, I get passionate, because from one angle, my mind shows me how else the world can happen. What other variations of it is there? What is the true value proposition that existence gives, and attention that is just here until it decides, until it notices, until it realizes that it is here to connect. But connect to what? To that which is worldly, to that which we may think is an idea of another. Like somebody says, hey man, is an extraterrestrial an extraterrestrial? I'll say bullshit, and there are no such thing as extraterrestrials. Let me tell you why. Because it's a terrestrial idea. That is why. Because it's worldly. So even if the most advanced extraterrestrials all landed on Earth, and in some sense they were like, what do you guys have to say? Because we're about to conquer you. Do you know? And we in some sense would say, unfortunately, it's an unnecessary effort, but even if you do, the power that protects us is beyond the world. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Dear human beings, we can completely carry on living a life that ignores what's actually going on. And we may have this idea that even if we attempt to know what's actually going on, right, it may be dangerous, but let me tell you, it's hilarious. Danger. It's as if what matters? Danger. Danger matters. To even the dangerous, that means it's, do you see, like, I don't know how to tell you, it's kind of like, okay, you have entered Earth, okay, there's a system admin, okay, in some sense there's moderators, okay, there's members, okay, you're a member. As a member of this existential system with the system admin, what should in some sense the task at hand be? What should in some sense going through the moment be? The first consideration, at least in my approach, as one human being, or as a soul created by the Almighty, which I feel blessed to be, that existence is a masterpiece of the master of the masterpiece. It's about realizing that life is so much more than all the opinions you have. That you are not the main character, but what do you do as a side character? Okay, what should the side character of existence do? Notice where the greatest value is and run towards it. I don't know who you are, but I perceive myself in my inner realms very playfully. I don't take myself seriously because God truly knows who I am, if the soul is the secret of God. So I cannot take myself seriously. But I am existing in a serious place. So to some degree, I give the burden of the future and the past by asking for forgiveness from the Almighty and then carrying on forth. And my understanding is that we are here to play a role. That means you might become the most advanced being. There was a story I would share in these lectures of mine like years ago. And it's not an Islamic story, it's a Sufi story. It's I'm not a Sufi anymore, I'm just a pure, simple Muslim. To me, everybody is not God. God is beyond the world. God is uncreated. God knows what is in the heart and processing systems of all human beings. So you can choose to be good or evil, you know, hide things or whatever, but you'll realize you're naked in front of a divine surveillance state. So relax and understand. Understand that you're in this kind of world. You're in a world where there's an authority. There are levels to it. This doesn't mean that we should just follow our imagination, and Alice just, you know, decided to go in a rabbit hole. I mean, there was other places she could have gone. But the absurdity of it was genius. I can't, like, I think Albert Camus, like, you know, he'd agree with me if I say the absurdist and the level of absurdity of Alice in the Wonderland was ahead of its time. But anyways, guys, what I'm trying to tell you is that I pretty much see life and myself, body, mind, soul, 3 levels. Yet I am one being, and all of it is in the soul being administered by God, right? And the main point really is the outcome of all of us like interacting with each other on a planet. That's it. It was from the beginning an international situation. So I want every human being to, in some sense, consider themselves as an international being. What does that mean? That means the moment man stepped on the moon, that meant something. That meant we are beyond the limitations, beyond that border called the atmosphere. See, the situation is strange. First of all, God knows, so I can't tell you what to do. But I see something as a human being in a human situation, and I can talk about that. And when I talk about that, that has a sort of to do. It has action on it. You know, when I was younger, you know, there was this idea of trust. And believe it or not, I'll say it as someone very simply, I have, for some reason, by being super shy, I think something happened in my childhood that in some sense, nothing in extreme, but I'm saying I think something caused me to in some sense be a human being, that because of my shyness I got to see the back room of every moment. Which is how the soul is observing itself being in a position, as it observes others being in a position, as it observes the world happening in the same position. So let's go through the moment. Guys, this art form is as simple as this. We just go through the moment. So wherever you are, whatever you are, you sit down. You can even sit down on a bench in a park on a sunny day, and just for a moment, and you're telling yourself, and you're going to be exact with time. In 5 minutes, like a person can do, or whatever amount you choose when you want to open your eyes. But the whole point is, you when you close your eyes, your inner realms is more vivid. If you can choose to have your eyes open, but that's gonna cause you to become way more skillful quickly with the inner realms. But in reality, the inner realms are based on free will, but because the context is divine will, free will is really free will only to itself and others. Why are we here? Why am I here? Why is it all existing? What is the life force doing in every situation? How much of life is just maintaining the existence, and how little of life is in some sense actually wondering what's going on? To be honest, if somebody says, is the modern man advanced? I would say we can't know. And I'll say why, because in some sense we have to have the modern man be undistracted and then see his true capability. But what does man concentrate on? It's kind of like this. Just like how children in schools would write exams, believe it or not, it's that kind of vibe, but it's the whole world. Okay? And so, and this is a perspective. And so what is the notion of this? Right? So it's as if you've entered an exam hall. You're acknowledging, you know, the teachers, the moderators, and the principal of the school is there too. You're acknowledging, let's say, the admin or whatever, in that exam room, right? In that just limited, just exam room metaphor. And so you walk in there. You go there and you shake hands with the principal, you shake hands with the teachers, and you say hi. You know, you go and sit down in a position that is, you know, wherever you choose, right? Or you imagine you go and sit down exactly in the center, you know, but whatever. You go and you realize, you sit down and you pause, and that's kind of like childhood and growing up, and then becoming truly conscious of a position of being that we are being. And then the test begins, the moment we're like conscious and like we're in the test now. We are being watched by greatness, the origin of all possible greatness of existence. All right, guys, I gotta change this song. It's making my heart beat a little fast. Let's go somewhere chill. Guys, I'm just a human being saying I think we should probably have some advanced networking initiatives and create impure and pure sectors of humanity. We cannot create a peaceful and advanced world for everybody right now, but we can create a peaceful and advanced sector for the children of humanity. Guys, I'm telling you, this world is it can be effed up, but in reality it doesn't need to be. Why? Because intelligence has work to do. There's so much we must work on. It's as if like the good and evil guy were fighting and an engineer came. It's like, excuse me, you guys are fighting. We don't have time for that. You follow this blueprint and build this part of existence and advance it. You do this and don't be foolish and destroy. And just advance chaos in the creative absurdist cyberspace domain or whatever. Media domain. You see, it's all expression. We're beings of energy. We communicate. Good and evil is how we do it. How we do it is based on how we see it. How we see it is based on how we acknowledge who is seeing it. And who is seeing it is, we think, based on what we see. But it's also based on how we're being. And how we're being, that's where emotions are. And how you feel is kind of like where everything stands as the soul watches in a snapshot mode. So when someone, in some sense, talks about the world, they are talking about where they are. My soul is on the same planet as yours, but I'm like everybody. People act so classy. People are organized. Companies have such complex employee cultures. But excuse me, the species is acting professional, but being very unprofessional when it comes to caring for all the future generations that will be carrying our legacy. They were like, yo man, is this guy being kind because he's religious? He's like, no, he just wants to see how far humanity will go and how great will it be and how magnificent will it be if it realizes the room was never empty, that the admin was here smiling, that the moderators were laughing because they knew it was all a game, a simulation of man and that which was beyond it. It's as if the guy thought it was about himself. So he started worshiping himself, and that was wrong. He started worshiping others, that was wrong. He could never be them. And he started worshiping the world, and he could never be the world because he was a temporary being. He started worshiping him, went again back to the first one, worshiping himself, but he could never see himself. And so what are we? What is the journey of the soul? Am I an exhausted, entity, in an inefficiency that doesn't need to be? To realign the context of everything to that which we all consider great. Do you know? I'm telling you, worship God alone, and as you live this life, faith means the only way you trust yourself is because you have trusted the Creator that is moving everything, and because the Creator is moving the created, moving the world, you are part of the world. So it's like trusting God is like trusting what yourself can be. And the most beautiful thing that drew me to religion instantly was that in some sense, at least drew my ego to religion instantly. Whether it was fear-bound or desire-bound, was that if you want to give yourself something, it's limited to the mind, to the imagination, so it's imaginable. But when you pray for something and live well, live pure, not pure in a sense that like you're being a robot, but in the sense like, for me, I thought religion was robotic when I was young, right? But then I realized, no, It's like being in the presence of the original force presence of reality. The greatest power is present. That means I was looking for the advanced civilization, and advanced. I was trying to make the whole species, turn them into advanced communicators, and I'm like, wait a minute. It was as if, like, some blessing knocked on my shoulder. I turned around and I was like, oh my God, there is a power beyond me. And I remember when I was, in some sense, I became so limited to myself and myself's incapabilities, and there were just problems I couldn't solve, and I just didn't have the will anymore. And I remember I just prayed. Anymore. And the mind has infinite angles, infinite directions, and can go. Which one should I go? And it was as if my soul was like caressing my mind that had overworked itself to realize it was never in control of what happens in the world. And that's the humility that I could never imagine, but what's necessary. God blessed me from worshiping myself, which is shirk. That means if you see someone who's very egoic, yo man, that's haram. Do you know? Let me tell you why. And when I say egoic, I'm not saying just the idea of self. I'm saying it's when we take as a limited being. You see, believe it or not, in Islam, there is notions that there is a lower self and a higher self. And sins are like you're walking into the world of your lower self. That's like what you experience. And then there's another dimension. Think of it. It's like, if you put your attention on that which created it all. I mean, think about it. Just think about it. What can an effect do? What can an infinite effect do? It can, in some sense, bow to its cause. That which brought us all here, that brought the world here. It is not just something that we cannot even be rude by clapping for it in magnificence, but it's one of those things where your body bows in the sense that you realize, oh my God, this candle wax may melt. Like, that's the metaphor. A part of me understands chaos when I get bored. But a part of me appreciates the royalty of the divine. And when I say royalty, I shouldn't use that metaphor. But what I'm saying is imagine like a, peasant blacksmith for the first time, welcome to a palace, that nobody's ever been to inside, by the king because he created the most next level like sword or something. Man. How and where was the spear of attention thrown? Which is in some sense it's like we're archers, and based on what we decide to do, we're like constantly shooting arrows into the future. That's an excellent metaphor. Oh my God, that's a brilliant metaphor. Alright guys, let me see where can I take this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. To begin as a human being, I guess I'll start off this way. I mean, how else can I find the trail here? As a human being, of course, like there's been my whole existence this whole time. There's been the acknowledgement of my value, how there's a value I have of myself. There's a value of how every person who has met me, they have an inner value of who I am, right? And based on how I have conducted myself in their presence also like suggests kind of like how they act in my presence as well. And as someone who was bored from the modern, from how not modern the modern world is, right? I'm just someone, I guess, waiting for God to authorize the greatest performance of the human species. You know, today I had a very unique thought. And it wasn't a happy thought. It was just this thought that I was like, oh my God. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, actually. It was like, okay, it's gonna end. It feels like, you know, it feels like a regulated system, a system that at least has some sort of a meaning, right? That means if everything started from the uncreated being and everything returns to the uncreated being, right? It's as if, okay, there we go. We have a story there. It means something. It means from the original, all began and all will return to the original. It's beautiful. We get to see the truth. Muhammad Ali, this greatest boxer, he in an interview in this YouTube video, I saw this young girl ask them, what are you going to do after you retire? And I don't remember exactly, but I think he said something in the lines of, I'm going to prepare myself to meet God. And I found that such an incredible sentence. It was such a graceful punch. Do you know what I mean? A graceful punch with like, hey, it's like we can't ignore where our energy comes from. For me, when I pray, it's beautiful, but there's also moments that I feel so unworthy, tears pour out of my eyes. Why? Because the greatness is so beyond. It's so beyond. People think religion is in some sense, yo, what are these world sentences? Oh my God, you are looking at it from the wrong way. Where every sentence is guiding your attention to this consideration that, hey, remember where you are. Remember who's in charge and relax, because it's not us. We are part of God's creation. We are part of the greater artwork, the greater expression. And there is something so incredible. It's as if, yo, the soul has nothing to lose. It was created as by the greatest, so therefore it is automatically a masterpiece. And so the soul, in some sense, is on earth and being tested as how it is a mind and body, and how it notices more than that, and how it conducts itself. And when situations happen in life, is the person just self-worshipping? Are they other-worshipping? Or are they world-worshipping? Or is it just like, yo, man, the system admin is here, I'm here. Like, let's just see the greatness of the moments that can be. climbing the staircase of religion is incredible. I've started. And the first thing was that I realized, and you know how I was self-worshiping? Because I have because I write science fiction, I have constantly, just as a hobby, out of, I guess, existential boredom, like literally, wondered about what is the most advanced state, position, whatever, what is the most advanced being. And it made sense to me that it's beyond the world, and religion was the only thing. That means when you follow it logically, when you look at existence and just go through it logically, go through the moment logically, you're like, oh my God. Like, it makes sense. For our body, biology, it makes sense how, like, the existence came about. But in some sense, right, the extra story is unnecessary. So let me tell you what I mean by this. I mean that in this world of ours, we can ignite, and as human authors, infinite worlds and storylines and context to what truth is. But there was something magnificent about how Abraham's wish came true. Peace be upon him. And how Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in some sense became, in some sense, the great flag, the final flag of, like, all right, creatures of this world that are capable of noticing conscious design. So if you wonder about how energy's being here, if you wonder about the probabilities of existence, if it feels like too unique how it's all here, because it is very unique, and that suggests that there is an administrative contextual maintenance. So for me, it's way more fascinating. It's like when I used to wake up in the morning, it was just me, and I was like, all right, just me again, another version of me. But then now it's like, yo, it's not just an empty planet and another version of another new experience. It's now I have found the host, the truth in the room that was never an infinite, schooling system. For me, like, I used to be very spiritual, but now I'm like, whoa, whoa, right? And let me tell you what I mean by this. That means I let my inner realms dominate myself, my psyche. There's in my mind, in my inner realms, I've seen so many versions of like how like if there were infinite parallel worlds in my, let's say, inner sight as a human being, as someone who's given these talks, I've seen so many versions of how civilization, I can in my inner realms see the fruit of my labor, but in my outer realms, it is in some sense, it's more important than me, and I realize that. So anyways, whoever you are, wherever you are, the only difference is, like, if you were to see like a footage of a secular person living a day and someone who acknowledges the system admin, the original, that which is beyond the system, the secular person is legit, and the religious person are, let's say, living the same day. The only difference is that the religious person is living in a world where there is divine administration. There is God. It's real. The world is more than just human interaction. The intelligent levels are more. That means, sorry to break it to all artists, I was I walk that road. But I'll tell you this. It's not that the art ever dies. It lives on and echoes endlessly in an infinite realm. It's just that why? Why are we present to be alive? Why our souls? Like what is it? And you know that because the future we have faith, so all the future expectation I had of what would happen, all of it I just gave to God. I was like, okay, God, like it was like imagine midway of solving a Rubik's cube, you're like, okay, I don't know, and you give it to someone else. Even though I'm someone who I used to solve that shit and like kind of like shock my family members. Guys, I don't know. But if the difference would be somebody would just acknowledge the system admin and not contact, like, just directly go to the system admin. You don't need to, like, get it, like, how can I say it? Forget the members and moderators, like, communicate and live on. But I'm saying just in the time of where your attention truly goes, let it go to truly the Almighty. I say this as a graceful singularity. Thank you for listening. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Good night.